Mr.
It is now 7:30, and we will call to order the September 24th meeting of the Common Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll and read the prepared announcement.
September 24th, 2019. Please be advised this meeting is being taped for audio and video broadcast. The meeting will also be closed captioned. It's important that everyone speak clearly into the microphones and only one person speak at a time. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Corsello.
Here.
Mr. Hostin.
Present.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Present.
Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Ioannidis.
Here.
Mr. Dumas.
Here.
Ms. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Siegelbaum.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Sirenides.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
15 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting, September 10th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Igneri. Any corrections, deletions, omissions? Ms. Siegelbaum.
Of course. So on page 13, it says, Mr. Livingston thanked Ms. Livingston. That should say Ms. Melendez.
Where are you now?
Page 13, under number 1, like the second line down.
You don't tell my wife that.
Oh, Mr. Livingston, thank Mrs. Livingston.
No, Miss Living.
Yeah, I see that.
And there's one more thing.
Yeah. Thanks.
On page 12, Mr. Igneri's name is incorrectly spelled.
Thank you.
Okay. So noted, and down at the bottom here. Any further corrections, omissions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Hempstead abstains. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public participation.
Lisa Brenton.
Good evening, everybody. Lisa Britton, 24 Highland Avenue. Tonight, I believe on the consent calendar, you have approval of the POCD, the master plan. While I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, especially by Steve Kleppen, I still feel it does not include 3 fundamental goals that should be stated and addressed. Number 1, how large do you want to grow the population of Norwalk over the next 10 years? Number 2, does the city have the infrastructure and the space to support the increased population? And finally, due to our primary reliance on property taxes to fund city services, what percentage of single-family homeowners versus multi-unit rentals do you believe is a healthy balance to economically sustain our quality of life? Norwalk's an old city with both structural and maintenance costs that have been plaguing us for decades. Longtime residents are concerned about being able to afford to stay in Norwalk as property taxes do increase. Growth is supposed to be about bringing prosperity, but I don't see that reflected in the 350-page document or in people's current home values. Where are the jobs to support all these people? More people means more city expenses. Repeated pleas for smart, scaled development have been ignored. Thousands of rental apartments have been built, with more on the way, without sufficient taxes to support the added infrastructure or maintenance needed to support the people. My economic concerns that are not addressed in the POCD are the following. The overuse of redevelopment tax credits paid for on the backs of taxpayers. The per-unit apartment construction costs that exceed the median price of a family home in Norwalk. Median household income that is lower than the average city employee's salary. The loss of corporate and small businesses. Our inability to enforce all of our ordinances, which is depreciating neighborhoods and lowering home values. And finally, the elephant in the room, a school system which takes the lion's share of the budget with over 11,500 students attending Norwalk schools, where nearly 60% of them are on free and reduced lunch, and hundreds more expected, as Hartford continues to shortchange the city as it has for over a decade. So as expenses increase, less and less is available for all these great plans that you've put here in this POCD. So I really hope that you guys take all the economics into consideration, because it's not a master or strategic plan unless you address the finances. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anna Keegan.
Good evening, members of the Common Council. I am here tonight as Acting Director of the Human Relations Department and the city's ADA Coordinator to speak in favor of item D3 on the agenda, the proposed plastic straw ordinance. Plastic straw bans are frequently a source of worry for people with disabilities. While many people see plastic straws as a mere convenience, for many people with disabilities, plastic straws are a vital tool necessary for them to safely drink. Most alternatives are not functional or can be actually dangerous. Metal straws aren't flexible enough and can be dangerous for people with disabilities that involve involuntary movement, where a sudden uncontrolled jerk can lead the straw to cause them injuries. Paper and other biodegradable straws also often lack flexibility and can be bit through when a disability involves involuntary biting, and can also disintegrate after longer use, leading to a risk of aspiration. While we do hope there will be an environmentally friendly substitute, currently plastic straws are the best and safest alternative for many people with disabilities. Bans with specific exceptions for people with disabilities also create concerns about forcing people with disabilities to reveal their disability in order to get vital eating tools. The Ordinance Committee has worked with these concerns and taken them into thoughtful consideration in drafting this ordinance. They have created an ordinance which reduces plastic waste while also protecting the rights of people with disabilities in Norwalk. This ordinance reduces waste by not allowing restaurants to give out straws unsolicited, but protects people with disabilities by allowing the restaurants to give them out to any customer who requests them without requiring them to have a disability, and also protects people with disabilities by requiring all the restaurants and bars in Norwalk to carry plastic straws, so that people with disabilities will be able to go out and have dinner or drinks with their friends and family with the same ease as the rest of us do. I want to thank the Ordinance Committee for all their hard and thoughtful work on this ordinance, and to encourage the Common Council to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Samuel Pride.
Good evening, everybody. Samuel Pride, 1 Armstrong Court, Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm a member of the ADA Committee and also the Advisory Board for Vision and Impaired for the state of Connecticut. I am speaking to you from the viewpoint of a person who lived life without a disability. And now I'm experiencing what it is to live life as a person with disability. It is not comfortable for people to be forced to reveal their disabilities in order to get the things they need, which is why I support the ordinance, which does not require people to reveal their disabilities to get straws. I would like to ask you to pass the ordinance so you do not make people of disabilities feel like disabled in the city of Norwalk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Bonifant.
Good evening. Rich Bonifant, Park Hill Avenue. And good evening, everybody. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for entertaining me. Speaking on item, the planning one, the master plan. So after 2 years of meetings and workshops, the answer is more apartments, higher density, increased traffic, and relaxed zoning rules. It's almost like the study results were written ahead of time and the exercises were just designed to validate the agenda. Ask people in Norwalk the question, how do you like all these apartments? How do you like all the traffic? All right. Look, I understand the market forces. In New York City, apartments go for twice as much as they go for here. So we can rent them quickly. But do we know when to say when? Moving traffic along more efficiently, well, that's kind of a nice way of saying you're never pulling out of your side street because you're never going to have an opportunity. So I guess I should look on the bright side of this. With these last modifications in the memo that came out with the agenda, I'm 60 years old. I can call my daughter like a caregiver. I can build an accessory apartment on my single-family house, and I can sell it as a two-family in a one-family zone. Or I can give it to my kids, and they can rent it out as a four-family, and let the neighbors fight out for the parking places. Thank you.
Thank you.
Olivia Lauricia.
Hi, my name is Olivia Laricia. I'm 12 years old and I support the ban on plastic straws and stirrers. Last Saturday, I participated in a beach cleanup where 18 volunteers pulled this many straws out of a marsh at Veterans Park, along with a lot of other trash. If we limit the use on plastic straws, I believe that we can make a really big impact. Here's an example of how limiting plastic straw use works. Often my family goes to Colony Grill. A while ago, I noticed that the waiters and waitresses would only provide a straw upon request. So now instead of using 5 plastic straws, we only use 1 paper straw for my younger sister. If restaurants gave paper straws only upon request, we could eliminate plastic straws from ending up in our oceans. Since the restaurants would be giving up fewer straws altogether, they could afford to spend the money on paper straws versus plastic. The other item proposed in this new law would be the ban of plastic stirrers, which we also found an abundance of at the cleanup. If we really think about it, we only use these stirrers for about 10 seconds, then we throw them away. It doesn't make sense considering it takes over 200 years to decompose, way beyond our lifespans. If the ban on plastic straws and stirrers is approved, the city of Norwalk would be one step closer toward leading a more sustainable future for generations to come. I hope to see fewer straws washing up on our beaches and in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty Ball.
Hello, my name is Betty Ball and I'm a Norwalk resident and a member of Skip the Plastic Norwalk, a group dedicated to raising awareness about the impact of single-use plastics on our environment, health, and economy. We support the passage of a B2C ordinance that would ban the sale, use, or distribution of plastic drink stirrers and require that plastic straws be available upon request only at stores, food service establishments, nonprofits, and institutions. Here's a brief overview on plastic straws polluting our environment and having a negative impact on Norwalk. It's estimated that Americans use 500 million straws, including stirrers, every day. And it's also estimated that there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans by 2050. It's estimated that food service establishments would reduce their straw usage by 40% if they eliminated the practice of automatically putting a straw in every beverage, saving them money as well. When a customer receives a beverage with a straw that they did not request, many are removed from the drink and discarded without ever being used, creating unnecessary waste. When a food server places straws on a customer's table before asking if one is desired, these straws are usually thrown away, again, without ever being used. Skip the Plastic Norwalk supports a ban on plastic stirs and on straws upon request only policy for all businesses for many of the same reasons that Norwalk recently passed the two previous ordinances, one on plastic bags and one on polystyrene. Single-use plastic straws and stirs are used for a few minutes at best and then discarded. Plastic straws and stirs are neither biodegradable nor recyclable in Norwalk. They must be thrown in the trash where they're incinerated. Plastic straws and stirs also end up in waterways such as Long Island Sound through human error, inadvertently left on beaches and other outdoor spaces. Just this past weekend, we collected an astounding number of plastic straws, you just saw some of them, and stirs near the water on Veterans Park, and we only covered a few hundred yards during that 2-hour cleanup. So what's the solution? Straws should be out of sight and dispensed on a request-only basis. If food establishments wish to serve single-use straws for customers who request them, paper is the only truly biodegradable option. In lieu of plastic stirrers, options include no stirrer, a reusable spoon, or a stirrer made of bamboo or wood. Straws made from bioplastics such as corn and marketed as compostable are neither compostable nor recyclable. We recommend that the city, with our support, launch a campaign to educate businesses about corn-based plastics, including straws, as they pose the same problems as plastics. In closing, we believe that Norwalk should continue to reduce its plastic footprint in order to protect our community by raising awareness, as well as supporting ordinances ensuring that we're stewards of our planet for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel Precious.
Hi, Rachel Precious of 23 Fitch Street. I actually spoke last week at the Board of Education meeting by accident. So for those of you who have heard my thoughts, thank you for your patience as I repeat myself. Good evening, my name is Rachel Precious. I'm a Norwalk resident, conservation biologist, shellfish farmer, and small business owner. I'm also the vice chair of the Connecticut chapter of the Surfrider Foundation, an international nonprofit working to protect our oceans, waves, and beaches. And I would like to speak on behalf of our chapter and thank the committee and the council for working to reduce plastic pollution in our environment. One way that Surfrider works to protect our oceans and coastline is by hosting monthly beach cleanups throughout the state. We sort and weigh all of our findings and submit the data to a national database where information can be accessed by the public and is an important resource. In regards to plastic stirrers and straws, while they're not the most significant source of the global plastic waste problem, they're highly visible, relatable, and avoidable. We commend the Council for advancing ordinances on these items. While Surfrider believes a total ban on straws is the most effective method for protecting our marine environment, we fully support the Council and the ordinance as written with its Ask First approach. We also applaud the efforts of the Council to accommodate persons identifying as living with disabilities, and thank you for including stiff penalties for noncompliance, while also being fair to businesses in issuing written warnings on first offense. I'd also like to thank you on a more personal note. As an ocean farmer, I see firsthand the impact of plastic pollution every day. Norwalk has made an incredible effort already on keeping our waters and coastline free from harmful pollution by passing bans on plastic bags and more recently EPS foam. Straws and stirrers are the next step, and it's inspiring to have a local government not only on board with such ordinances, but leading the way. Your support and initiative does not go unnoticed. As a millennial, I, like so many of my peers, value a community's stance on environmental issues. While straws and stirrers may seem like a small issue, taking any action against plastic pollution speaks volumes and makes a big impression. Your efforts make Norwalk stand out as a forward-thinking city, one that understands the value of sustainability for the community, for local businesses, and for the planet. While I've only recently moved to Norwalk, I already feel like this is my home, and I look forward to working together as we continue to create a plastic-free future. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else has signed to address the council. Is there anybody else that would wish to address the council, perhaps if you came in late? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public participation. Next item on the agenda is resignations and appointments. There are no resignations under appointments. I would like to put forth the name of Lamond Daniels as Chief of Community Services, and I would ask Lamond to come down to the podium, introduce himself to members of the public. He's already introduced himself to members of the council, and give us a little bit of a history of your background.
Mayor, excuse me.
Yes, Ms. Young has to recuse herself because it's possible that Mr. Daniels will end up being her supervisor.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone, to members of the council, to Mayor Rollins. Thank you very much. By way of introduction, my name is Lamond Daniels, and I'm looking forward tonight to being confirmed as the new Chief of Community Services serving the residents in the city of Norwalk. I am no stranger to Norwalk, as during my formative years, I lived in Norwalk and attended Narramack Elementary School. I also have quite a few colleagues, great friends, and community partners that reside in this great city. Briefly, I just want to introduce, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Ventisha Daniels, our daughter, Corinne, and a good family friend, Linda Goldenberg. A little bit about myself tonight. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I hold 2 master's degrees, a master's in social work, and I also hold a master's in public administration. Prior to interviewing this position, I came from the CVS Health Aetna Foundation, where I served in corporate social responsibility and philanthropy at the corporate office, working with government affairs, the legal division, and the business units as the principal lead, working with cities and counties, social and health departments, large and small, across the country, identifying areas of programmatic and policy improvement, looking at collaboration and alignment to serve their communities. Before that, I was the newly appointed Director of Neighborhood Initiatives for the City of Bridgeport, working directly in the mayor's office, spearheading neighborhood projects, built environment projects, community safety initiatives, neighborhood improvement plans, and ensuring some of our most challenging neighborhoods have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And over the past 5 years, I have a part-time job as an adjunct professor for the Connecticut Community College System, teaching new and aspiring human service workers. As the new Chief of Community Services, my approach will be simple. That is to take a systemic approach to review and assess initiatives and programs that are focused on improving the lives of our residents and provide strategic direction to increase deliberate partnerships and collaborations, identify sustainable opportunities and solutions, assess utilization and access, and tackle and address programmatic and policy issues. Over the years, I've learned quite simple that the intersection between government programs and private and public partnerships is crucial. I am well astute to the many nonprofits and small organizations alike serving our communities every day, working to maintain what we often call in the human service field, the safety net. That is why partnerships with the community is equally critical to the success in everything that I embark on. I know how to bring people to the table. I am a consensus builder, a relationship manager, and I always strive to discover how can we get to a yes. I plan to be visible, approachable, accountable, a team player, a listener, and an innovator when needed. In closing, I am humbled to have been chosen as the first Chief of Community Services serving in the great city of Norwalk. And I look forward to working with you all and the departments before me. I am committed to giving this position my very best, working together to provide and offer quality services and activities on behalf of the residents of Norwalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Daniels?
Need a motion?
Well, we need a motion to approve Mr. Daniels as the Chief of Community Services, so I would accept a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Ms. Smith makes the motion. Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead.
It was very nice meeting you.
Yes.
I'm impressed with his resume was sent out. I'm sorry I couldn't make the meeting on Thursday, but I had other things going on, or Tuesday, whatever day it was. I'm lost what day of the week it is lately. Even though I did not support the position being created, I certainly, after having a great conversation and seeing the resume, I think he's very qualified to take this position up.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you. I just want to add, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Daniels before, last week, and I was very impressed then, and I'm even more impressed now. I think your comments now just show, in my mind, they basically say everything I was going to say about you in terms of your background experience, your enthusiasm, and I think you'll be a tremendous asset. And I particularly like the fact that you have experience both in the private and public sector, and I know that's going to be a real asset to you when you come to bring the groups together, look for all possible funding sources and the like. I think that would be great. Anyway, I think you'll be an excellent first person to take this job, and heartily support you.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I would just like to add how impressed I am with your experience, your expertise that you can bring to Norwalk in coordinating services. And something that you said when we met earlier in the week, last week actually, was you were so excited about the growth here in Norwalk. We have so much exciting things going on, but you mentioned that what we have to do is make sure we're still taking care of our neediest people. And that's what it's all about. So thank you for that. So I fully support Mr.
Further
Keating.
discussion? Oh, sorry. Further discussion? Yeah, I too, in interviewing Mr. Daniels and then having an opportunity to present him to the leadership of the council. Unfortunately, Mr. Hempstead and Mr. Kites were unavailable, but Ms. Smith and Mr. Livingston did come. It just reiterates my position that you're the right person for the job. As you know, that one of the glaring needs in Norwalk was someone who could provide social services and bring a coordination together of all the services that are available and help people live their quality of life, to improve their quality of life. And I, too, am very, very impressed, and thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to working with you.
Hey. And congratulations to the family. You're now a part of the Norwalk family. Okay, next item on the agenda, the reappointments. We have Joe Bennett, Human Relations Commission. Do I have actually, we have 4 Human Relations Commission reappointments. Perhaps we can move them all together. We have Joe Bennett, Julia Scamble, Peter Halliday, and Karen Tobin. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to, yeah. I'd like to make that motion. I'd like to move the reappointments of these 4 people to the Human Relations Commission, and say briefly that having served on the commission myself, I know very well that they are committed, dedicated to public service, and I, for one, am grateful that they are agreeing to continue their service.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
I'd like to also support all 4 candidates, but particularly I'd like to point out Peter Halliday, who was a candidate in 2017, and I had the opportunity to have several very refreshing discussions with him on the campaign trail, and I think his reappointment will serve the Human Relations Commission very well.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Ditto. That was me. Ditto.
I would say those minutes.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Whoever is here would come down and have the clerk administer your oath of office. I know Mr. Halliday is here. I don't know if I don't see anybody else.
Take your time.
Take your time.
No rush.
Congratulations. Yes, you got it.
Okay, raise your right hand. You, Peter Halliday, having been reappointed as a member of the Human Relations Commission of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. Peter, let me
There's 2 copies, sign one and
Sign my way.
sign both,
That's it.
actually.
You're right.
Right up here.
There you go.
And there's one more, sign that one, and you can have that one. That's suitable for framing.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving again.
Okay, next item on the agenda, remarks from the mayor. Hey, this Saturday, we're going to be honoring the Norwalk Revolution, the World Series champions from Norwalk, Connecticut. In the baseball, we're going to have a victory ride starting here at City Hall at 10 o'clock. We're going to be going down Mill Hill, Wall Street, West Avenue, Washington Street, Seaview Avenue, First Street, down to the beach. And at the beach, we're going to be having a little celebration for them. They brought world recognition to the city of Norwalk, as some of our other teams have done in the past, and we're very, very proud of them. Last year was a little bit difficult because I believe they came in second, I'm not sure. But they were resilient and they tenacious, and they came back and worked harder, and they won this year's World Championship Series, and we are very, very proud of them. Public is invited to attend. The special ceremony will take place at Cap Pasture Beach at 11, hosted by Ripka's. So we look forward to seeing anybody that would like to attend and say thank you and congratulations to the Norwalk Revolution. Next, the Norwalk Inaugural Film Festival will be held on Saturday, September 28th, at 6 different locations throughout the city of Norwalk. For more info, you can go to norwalkfilmfestival.com. It's a wonderful event, just bringing the arts back in great fashion to the city of Norwalk, different movies produced by different people from the city, and I think you'll enjoy them.
Admission is free, by the way.
And admission is free. Thank you for reminding me about that. Observance of Rosh Hashanah begins Sunday night at sundown. We are wishing a sweet New Year's to all our Jewish friends. On Friday, October 4th, is the NAACP Annual Freedom Fund Dinner at Giovanni's. The proceeds from the dinner go to provide scholarships for young people who might not otherwise have an opportunity to attend college. It's a wonderful event, always a lot of fun. So I would encourage anybody who's able to attend. Again, it's October 4th, NAACP Annual Freedom Fund Dinner at Giovanni's. The Triangle Community Center Gala will also be held on Friday, October 4th. Do you know where that's going to be?
The loading dock in Stamford.
The loading dock in Stamford. So I know it's both of them the same night, but they're both in Stamford, so we can drop in and visit both of them if you have an opportunity. But again, it's just a wonderful opportunity to help celebrate one of our wonderful organizations here in the city of Norwalk. On October 5th, the very next night, the Lockwood Matthews Mansion Roaring Twenties Gala is scheduled for that evening. And it's going to be at Lockwood Matthews, obviously. And if you wish, you can dress in the era attire and come as a Roaring Twenties person. Have a lot of fun. And last but not least, the annual Police Cadets Award will be held in Norwalk Concert Hall on Monday, October 7th. We have wonderful first responder cadets, the police and fire cadets of the city of Norwalk. They do so much to help us at the different events, whether it's the Oyster Festival, Sono Arts Festival, other events where they just provide help parking, help with traffic, help with anything that they can. They do a lot for us, and they're always at so many events. I just wonder, I get quite amazed that every time I go someplace, we have the cadets, whether it's an event here at City Hall, event down at the beach, event at Betts Park, so forth. So come on out on October 7th and show your support for the Norwalk Cadets. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, little birdie tells me we have some recent birthdays. I want to wish happy birthday to Ms. Siegelbaum and Mr. Burnett, I guess yesterday and last week.
Happy birthday. Are you going to sing happy birthday to them?
No, you don't want to sing. Someone else, you can. Okay, we do that one. All right, so the consent calendar tonight will be read by Mr. Ioannidis. Just a reminder for those watching, if an item you're interested in is on the consent calendar is approved, that means it was approved, and there will be no further discussion. Chris?
All right. A, Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs Committee. 1A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with AV Tucci, Inc. for Project 3948, window and door replacement at Ripka's Beach Cafe, Calf Pasture Beach, not to exceed $104,940. Account number noted for $95,000 and account number noted for $9,940. 1B, authorize the Director, Recreation and Parks to issue change order to AV Tucci, Inc. for Project 3948, window and door replacement at Ripka's Beach Cafe, Calf Pasture Beach, for a sum not to exceed $10,000, account noted. B, Finance Committee. 1, accept and approve the report of the Claims Committee dated September 12, 2019. B2, for informational purposes only, narrative on tax collections dated September 12, 2019. B3, for informational purposes only, monthly tax collectors report dated August 2019. B7, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with FIS for the Integrated Payables Service to process electronic payments via ACH and virtual cards. Moving on to C, Planning Committee. C2, authorize Mayor Rilling to enter into an agreement with Planometrics to perform the following services: consultant services for building zone regulations, analysis, and recommendations in an amount not to exceed $20,000. 3, approve the sole source procurement approving Snyder Group to update the Norwalk Tomorrow website. D, Ordinance Committee. D1, approve the proposed revisions to Chapter 32 Code of Ethics, 32-9 Specific Violations, 32-13 Effective Violation, 32-14 Time Limits on Complaints, 32-15 Proposed Revisions. D2, approve proposed revisions to Chapter 32 Code of Ethics, 32-11 Subsequent Employment.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the consent calendar as read? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Item 7B4, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4, the Finance Committee resolution approves special capital appropriations totaling $250,000 to fund a new capital project to complete an updated Recreation and Parks Master Plan and authorizing the issuance of $250,000 general obligation bonds of the city to meet said appropriation. This particular resolution will support a plan for Parks and Recs that will put us directly in line with in order to have be in a great position for accreditation. And in the process of implementing the plan, we will be raising the standard of our parks and recs to a first-class level. There's several indications that any viable city with a strong park and rec environment will flourish as a result of having a strong park and rec plan. The price of this particular item would be offset by item 5, which I'll cover. Well, actually, we should move them together. So let me state that resolution also. Item 5, authorize the closure of the following projects as noted: Brian McMahon Turf Fields with available balance of $12,976. Account noted, Brian McMahon Turf Fields with available balance of $101,327. And account noted, Chesterfield Turf Replacement with available balance of $133,150. The total of those projects totals $247,000. The estimated cost for the study will be no more than $250,000. So essentially, the funding will be balanced out between the two items.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Mr. Burnett has moved the item. Any discussion? Mr. Hempstead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm not going to vote for this, and I'll just explain my three reasons for it. One, $250,000 for a study of what we don't put enough money into in the first place. We've had some Vets Park, we did a updated master plan. I'm losing track of time as you've been here longer. I know that was at least probably in the last 10 years. We did one for the Gallagher's estate along with Cranberry Park up there within the last 10 years or so. A lot of involved community groups. The issue isn't so much about studying what we have and what we need, because if you look at the other studies, a lot of things on all those other studies we've not had the money for a variety of reasons to implement. So we put together another study to tell us what we would like to do, but we never can seem to fully fund. The third reason is I think it's premature based on some of the conditions that, there's another one that's approved here tonight, and along with the master plan. Master plan is looking for ways, zoning is now, to put implementations of some of the things in the master plan, which of them has to do with land uses, has to do with what we need to do with our parks and densities. So without those in place first, then how do we assess whether what we're doing is the right thing for the parks, and do we have enough parks? And I truly believe we don't have enough parks in our urban areas. So it's those three items why I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Houston.
I wanted to add that I agree that it seems like a lot of money, but I like to see this more as an investment than necessarily a sunk cost. Partly because investing in things like parks and recreation has an impact on real estate value, home value, but more importantly on quality of life. And I think that's that's something you can't necessarily compromise too much on. I think we have an opportunity now. Maybe we've done studies in the past, but I think with a new chief of recreation and parks, this is an opportunity to really kind of think about some of those priorities in ways we have not been able to in the past. And so that's why I'm going to vote for it.
Further discussion, Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. I'm a big proponent of planning, as many of you know, and I'm looking at this, and reading this memo here, and just for those who don't know, 54 sites, over 1,000 acres of public parks, 200 plus acres of open space, and 70 acres of waterfront. And we haven't done a master plan of the parks in 26 years. So while we may have plans for Cranberry or Vets Park or whatever park, we don't have a comprehensive plan. And I think that's what we really need to figure out, how to best utilize our plans, where to put the money, our parks, where best to put the money, and as I said, how to use them. I think this is something we need to do, and I fully support it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? 14 in favor, Mr. Hempstead opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Burnett, item 7B6.
Mr. Mayor. Item 7B6, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a 12-month agreement with Event Approvals, Inc. for eProval special permit software, including installation, training, and configuration services per proposal EST 00013, dated the 2nd of September 2019, for amount not to exceed $28,100, account noted, approved IT capital project, no special appropriation required, with an option to renew at the same annual rate for 24 months and forward on to the council for further action.
Mr. Burnett has moved the item. Discussion?
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to introduce that the present process, for example, if someone was to come forward with a request to have an event in Norwalk, the present process calls for them to go to several different departments, It's a paper process, I'll say somewhat awkward, and this will bring us into the new technology. It'll be electronic. It'll give us an opportunity to fine-tune the overall process. It will save time. It will be customer service friendly. And it will also provide the avenue for other opportunities for electronic approval, such as permits, et cetera. So this would be a start in terms of events, but down the line, we could look at permits and other processes where we can have online approvals, which will be much faster, as I mentioned, customer service friendly, and more efficient.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, I was just going to add, one of the many things I've heard from people from almost from day one is particularly from people who are applying for PTO events. I'm sure like many of you, the frustration with getting a permit in City Hall. And I think this goes a long way to addressing that concern. It's often the first time people come in contact with City Hall. And their interaction with the City Hall then often set the tone for everything they do afterwards, and I hear about it, and others do as well. I think this is much needed. I think it will help all these organizations that are doing fundraising for various activities throughout the city, and make it a lot easier for them and make it a better city for all of us.
Thank you. Further discussion. Mr. Igneri.
I agree with Mr. Livingston. As a recipient of many emails complaining about the process, tears, this is wonderful new program. The great part about it is if someone's not available to sign off, it's noted and it will be recycled back to their desk at some point so they can get it. A parent doesn't have to come in time and time again seeking that approval. So this is a very efficient, customer-friendly way to do it.
Further discussion. Mr. Cadiz.
Yeah, as someone who's been, asked to help with permitting process, either it be a school or another nonprofit, I'm often finding myself forwarding, sending emails to multiple department heads or whoever the case may be. And now, I could just direct them to the city's website. So this is fantastic, and I'm sure it'll save a lot of us council members some time moving forward.
Further discussion. Yeah, I too would like to say that this is something that has been a work in progress. I know that we have Mr. Dakowitz and Karen Del Vecchio here. Mr. Dakowitz has put together a team to go over the whole permitting process so we can make sure that we cover as many of the bases as we possibly can. It was very frustrating to people having to run from department to department. If somebody at the fire department wasn't available, or the police department, or in any of the other departments that they had to go to, recreation and parks, to sign off on it, and they had to come back. And a lot of times they had to take their days off during the work hours, and they're volunteers. A lot of the school events are really what sticks in my mind. And they're volunteers trying to get this done, and it can be very frustrating, and it doesn't put the city process or any government process in good light when you have to run back and forth. And I know Ms. King has been working on this for a while out of my office. I thank her as well. How long?
A year.
Working on this for a year, and now with this being automated to the best degree we possibly can, it should be easy to navigate. People should have fewer problems and probably less frustrations. So I want to thank everybody who's been involved in the process and making this happen. And Mr. Dakowitz, and Karen, we have wonderful, and Ms. Del Vecchio, we have wonderful hopes for how this is all going to turn out. So seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7C1, Mr. Kides.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to read the item and then move it, please, and then briefly speak to it. Item C1, approve of the plan of conservation and development, the city's wide plan with the following recommended changes. Item A, modifications to the executive summary, pages 180, 182, 188, 191, 192, and 202 to reflect the inclusion of the Vision Zero initiative, and item B, other requested modifications. And all, it's taken, I believe, Steve, close to 2 years to get to this point. And during that time, we've had many discussions and public outreach that's reached every corner of Norwalk. And I think in this day and age with social media, email, and the internet, I have no doubt that this plan has reached more people and has had more public input than any other plan in the past. So that being said, I believe that we have a well-drafted plan that sets a clear path for our city, and a path that includes the voices of both young, olds, and from all our diverse neighborhoods. So that being said, I don't believe, Steve, did you want to say something?
Unless you want.
Well, there might be some questions, so Mayor, I pass it back to you.
Further comments? Mr. Hempstead.
I haven't met a master plan I've liked, and I haven't met a master plan I didn't like, because it's trying to be a catch-all for everything, and that's always a problem with master plans. Also, you look at it and say, that's a good idea, or that's a good idea, and you look at someone and say, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So I always say begrudgingly, I think everybody votes for the master plan at some day, because one, A, it's advisory, and we know that it's an advisory document. It cannot be held as a letter of law. B, I'm sure there are parts of it that we wish we could change ourselves, that we have a difference of opinion on. But I will echo some of my concerns, because what happens in the future on the implementation of this master plan is going to fall into others' hands. And a couple of my concerns are, and it's funny, my former colleague, Mr. Bonifant, and I did not discuss anything with Mr. Bonifant. In fact, I haven't talked to him, is about the senior housing. I brought up the concern of there hasn't been senior housing built in this city since Ludlow has been built. It's the last time we've done Ludlow, and that was done, I think, in 2000, probably almost 20 years ago. And before that, we had to go back probably to the Irving Freeze apartments, I think was the last one. So Norwalk hasn't really invested into directly in providing senior housing directly as it has in the past. And it's to address it with a format of trying to provide in all zones accessory apartments. It starts a little bit of a quagmire, because, again, as Mr. Bonifant brought up, my concerns with this before is that somebody dies, somebody sells the house. Now what do? You can't make them tear it down. So the accessory apartment is now built in any neighborhood, and my concern would be some non-conforming B and C. I used to live in one where you have more cars than houses that only have one little driveway or may have not a garage. Now have probably 3 or 4 cars and add another accessory apartment to it, if it's being allowed. And ability to put more cars on streets where there's less parking, and a lot of you represent neighborhoods that have that issue. That has to be taken in consideration, and I know it's spelled out that it considers focusing developments in areas with existing or planned physical infrastructure. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that we have to make sure we have sidewalks that are ADA compliant in those neighborhoods and are the only ones that can get accessory apartments? Or does it mean that, because it allows for a lot of chicanery that could happen with some of this, where somebody wants to develop a house and then put an accessory apartment, get another income, and move on to a different district. I'm saying it's watchful eyes. I'm concerned about that. The other concern I had, and I brought up before, and Mr. Chair, I apologize for not making your meetings, but my day job that pays my bills had me totally consumed.
You were missed.
Well, you probably got out of your meetings a lot sooner, though. So.
Definitely.
There doesn't seem to be a strategy to evaluate what's presently happening to Norwalk before we implement something. Because we voted for something that is asking for money to start looking at zoning regulations to be implemented for this. We don't really know the impact of the mall at the end of the day on the city until it's built and up and running for a year or so. We don't know the impact, or we're seeing some impacts of the additional housing we've taken on apartment-wise, but there's a lot still in the hopper to be developed, and we don't know what those impacts are. Because we are putting more children in school. By the last article I read, I'm trying to catch up with all my local news, that we've added 100 children into our school system not planned for. That's a good thing. Having kids in your community helps grow your community. But I think there needs to be some studies and evaluations done prior to the implementation of some of the suggestions that are in this master plan. I'm going to support it because at least for specificity, this plan is a heck of a lot more specific than our last plan. But being that specific also raises red flags because then if somebody's taking that let's go implement this. And I'm throwing this as a word of caution with these master plans, that making sure why you're implementing something makes sense, because this is a large wish list. Half these things we never get to because you don't have the money to do it, just like the last master plan. So that's my years of experience with being a little cautionary, but otherwise, it's certainly a better plan than the last plan as far as spelling out what it wants. Like everything, I don't agree with everything in it. I'm an anti-density guy, always have been. So there you go.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Hostin.
I agree that I think the plan is not perfect, but I think, compared to the one we did in 2008, I find this to be very thorough, thoughtful. I think it will be a useful guide, as it is intended to be, like you said, an advisory role to help us look at more specific policies, including things like funding. I love the idea that they have action items that are tied to timetables and specific resources. Specifically, for me, I really appreciate the great attention to environmental sustainability, including things like green infrastructure, thinking about how we zone for low-impact designs and structural management. So I'm also going to vote in favor of this. I had one question. I don't know if I can ask Mr. Kleppen to come up.
Mr. Kleppen.
And it's really regarding some of the housing precepts in it. Specifically, in the memo we talk about the plan promoting, as it says, housing choice and economic diversity in housing, which will meet the housing needs identified in the state's consolidated plan, and obviously make us eligible for some funding in that regard. My question is just to make sure that our current POCD does everything that it can to make us eligible for as much funding as possible, just because I've heard some suggestions otherwise.
Yeah, excuse me. I wouldn't agree with some of the remarks that I've seen in relation to that. I think the memo I provided kind of tried to rebut some of those claims that were in there. I think that we've met all the requirements that the state has. The documents required to get referred to the state of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management. They offered no comment on the plan, as well as other agents we had to refer it to.
Great, so they've seen it and I had a chance to comment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. I too will support the plan. I think it sets a vast improvement over what currently exists, which is a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I also like the fact that it's very broad in detail. I mean, you cover everything from economic development, education, sustainability, transportation. And while in and of themselves they're just headings, I think what they do is they serve as points of conversation, if you will. I mean, you have a lot of action items for every group, and I think what's key, and it's a plus and a minus, of course. It's the plus is you have all these all these action items, responsibilities, but they're only positive if we follow up on them, right? So we all have to make a commitment to do that. And as you know, I've asked you for, and you've given to me the schedule of all the items that the council is going to be involved in, with hope further councils will also be looking at that. But I think we really have to make sure that we do everything possible to follow up on each and every one of those action items, and a lot of them. And while I do think it's great to have them, I think that's the key. I'm not the first one to say that, I know, but I think it's very important.
So I think one thing on the implementation side, which we've talked about and I've talked with the mayor as well, is that, as you know, the capital budgeting is tied to the POCD currently. So one thing we've been talking with Angela, she was here, just left, I guess, about how we're going to kick off the capital budget process with possibly bringing in the department heads early in the process to give a preview to the full council, the planning commission, as well as the mayor, to outline their bigger picture capital items and how they tie into the POCD. It's not meant to be the full go through item by item to see what they're proposing, but give the big picture and how it matches up with the POCD. And that way we can give a kind of a report card to the council on here's where all these items are laid out for this particular department at this time, and here's how they're doing on them and where they stand. So that way we can hold them somewhat accountable. It's not meant to deal with, say the police department needs a new police car. It's meant to deal with if all of a sudden a new building pops into the plan that wasn't contemplated a few years ago, we can trace it back to the plan and then hold them accountable funding-wise.
Further discussion? Well, I want to thank Steve and all the other people who volunteered to serve on the committee to help develop the POCD. And I also want to echo what Mr. Kite said, that so many people had an opportunity to discuss this, to go to public hearings. This was probably one of the most widely publicized documents that I can remember. It's also a living and breathing document. It's not meant to be, this is it, black and white. It's a document that will be revisited over and over and over again and will be changed as needed. So it's a living, breathing document, not something static that this is it. So again, as it's been pointed out, if you compare this POCD with the one that was completed in 2008, it's so much more detailed, so much more comprehensive. And again, I would like to thank all the people that had a part in helping to bring this about. And I'm encouraged that I know that the Planning Commission put a lot of time and energy into it as well. So unless there's further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Melendez, item 7D3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the Ordinance Committee, approve new, item number 3, approve new ordinance use of single-use plastic straws and stirrers by food or beverage establishments. I'd like to move that.
Okay, Ms. Melendez moves it. All in,
Let me see.
Comment?
And I'd like to speak briefly
Comment?
to it. Again, I'd like to, last meeting, I'd like to thank members of the Ordinance Committee, especially Council President Livingston, and members of the community that attend all our meetings on these issues and that help us really work out all the little, basically work out the whole ordinance to make sure that it's the best that it can be. This ordinance was a little different than the last two. The last, banning plastic bags and styrofoam are kind of straightforward things. Whereas I remember the very first time that this was brought up, I remember being a little nervous because I was reading all these articles and hearing from different people that yes, plastic straws are the worst, but there are members of our community that need them. And that's just the reality. So going into it, I remember being a little kind of like, how do we really do this the right way? Looking into some municipalities that have just banned plastic straws outright and have paper straws and how that's worked for them. I remember even being in Boston once and they had just paper straws and kind of thinking about how that whole thing was working for them. And I'm just incredibly thankful that we had members of our community that were willing to work with us to make sure that we passed an ordinance that made sense, that worked, that really got to the goal that we're trying to achieve here, but that doesn't hurt members of our disabled community because plastic straws are the safest option for them. So just to reiterate, we are not banning plastic straws. They will be available upon request, but we are banning plastic stirrers because we don't need those. We don't need them. And I hope that, as we continue to pass these ordinances, we continue to be an example for other municipalities, not just in our surrounding area, but in our state, because this is, it really means a lot to us because we're on the water, but these things are important. So with that, just want to remind people that the effective date for this ordinance, if it passes, is April 22nd, 2020, which is Earth Day and the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So with that, anybody else wants to talk about it? I urge you all to support it. Yeah.
Mr. Livingston?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we can go through the whole thing we went through last time. Just thank Ms. Melendez for her leadership. Thank everybody else in the community for helping with this. I think this is, as you said, a little bit different. I mean, it really does strike a reasonable balance between the environmental goals and the needs of people with disabilities. And as was noted, it could even save money for some bars and restaurants. But with this ordinance, we will continue to set the pace for responsible environmental action in the state. And with the bag and styrofoam bans, we've taken concrete steps to protect our city and our coastline from plastic waste. And we really are setting an example. Back on Earth Day of this year, the mayor and I, the mayor of Stamford and counterpart on the Board of Reps there, met to discuss moving forward with a styrofoam ban and a plastic straw ban. They're still working on them. With tonight, we'll be done, and we will have done it. And we are leading the state in doing these things, and I think we should all be proud of that, and I heartily support this.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yes, I too heartily support the plastic stir and ban and the sensitivity that you have shown. I really want to commend the Ordinance Committee for the work that you did and showing sensitivity to people with disabilities. And I'm thinking about the message that we're sending to our young people, and I was so impressed by, Rachel, what you had to say, and really appreciate your words that Norwalk is showing leadership in this, and we're working to provide a better environment for our young people. And I'm sure I am not the only one who has seen this young Greta Thunberg speaking at the United Nations just in the last couple of days. We've got to think of our future. So thank you for the work that you've done, and I really support this.
Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead?
The minority side has to. I think probably behind the scenes, I want to thank Mr. Livingston, because the last ordinance committee I said I'm okay with the stirrers, but I had a problem with the straws due to all the effects on the seniors and that, and I was pretty much wouldn't have supported this without the changes made. All right, so it was a step in the right direction. Appreciate a couple of the people got a hold of me, at least left me messages from the senior center and that about the changing of this. It is, in the realm of things, a start, but it is a drop in the bucket. And I just want to make sure, A, we're not creating a market, it's not us, but in the general move this way, that we're not creating a market now that's going to go start deforesting our trees again and taking the Amazon because we switched from plastic to wood or that to paper. The goal is to try and eliminate, why do we need a straw half the time in anything that we get in the first place attitude, and why do I have to put 5 straws on the counter when you have families sitting there having drinks? I think part of this is not only the banning of something, but trying to create habits that certainly need to be changed. And moving forward, I'm one of those that we are humans are affecting the climate. So that's with an R next to my name, folks. But nature does things too. I mean, it's true from both sources. But God, if we ever get rid of the plastic bottles for water and the caps that go with them, because they are the 2 biggest polluters in this country. And I came from an era when that you bought your soda, you brought it back to the store, it went back to the bottling plant and got washed out and reused. When you bought your milk, it got bought in a bottle, it went back to the milk plant and got washed out. We need to go back to an era environmentally, right? Because unfortunately, all that glass going into those bottle returns gets crushed and gets used for cover for landfill. They can't do anything else with it, right? So action comes to more on a broader stroke, and I'm glad we're taking steps as Norwalk to show some of this, but we can eliminate a water bottle which didn't exist 25, 30 years ago when you think about it. It was Perrier. It was a fancy water bottle you bought, but otherwise nobody ever went to the store and bought a bottle of water or a can of water. So I'll be supporting this. Thanks for your hard work in the Ordinance Committee.
Mr. Ioannidis.
I'd just like to look at all of these changes we've made in the last few months kind of all together as one package. I think I do want to tack on to what Councilmember Hempstead just said. We are transitioning towards creating a culture of reusable things in the city of Norwalk, and I think that that's really important. It's not just a ban on plastic bags or straws or styrofoam. It's creating a culture in which our city understands that we need to watch our waste and we need to use things that are reusable where possible.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yeah, I also would like to thank Mr. Livingston and the Ordinance Committee, Olivia and Rachel for coming out and speaking. And yes, Ms. Smith, I did see Greta Thunberg, and her 2.5-minute presentation was so, it was just an amazing young lady who was 14 years old and who dressed down the United Nations at their climate summit for failing. He says, "You failed us," and that this generation will not forget, nor will they forgive. And we really have to stay on top of things. And Norwalk is a small corner of the world, but we are leading the way, and we're showing other people how to do it and how we can all work together. You know, I always say, if we don't take care of Mother Earth, Mother Earth is not going to take care of us. And we have some bad habits. And when you look at Greta Thunberg and you look at Olivia, who was 12 years old, I believe she was, it's the young people teach us what we should be doing. I always go back to the fact that I never used to wear a seatbelt in my car until my children, when we got in the car, would say, "Dad, buckle up, buckle up, buckle up." Now, no matter what car I'm in, front seat, back seat, I buckle up because it became a habit. We have to make this a habit, and the young people of this world are the people that are going to teach us and continue to hold us accountable for making this world a safer, better, healthier place. We have to pay attention. So this is just an amazing step in the right direction, and I really appreciate all the work and all the support. And from the public comes out and they say to us, "This is what we want," and this council responds.
Just thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to that, we did have some good input from some of our students here in Norwalk throughout this process, and I know that some of our McMahon students actually went to the climate march in New York City, inspired by Greta, and I assume others. I know I saw some high schoolers post and things like that, and I think it's really great that they're leaders in their schools and in their communities too.
So, having gone through that, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Congratulations to all of you, and congratulations to us. Ms. Melendez, item 7C4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 7C4, approve proposed revisions to Chapter 103, Taxation, Article 3, Tax Relief for the Elderly and Disabled Homeowners, Sections 103-6, Eligibility, 103-7, Filing of Application, 103-12, Amount of Benefits and Annual Adjustment. I'd like to move that item.
Item's been moved. Ms. Melendez?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to speak briefly to it, this isn't something new. This is something that I'm very thankful that we work on every year. We make adjustments to it every year to make sure that it's up to date and that we can adjust these numbers to include more Norwalk residents. And I'm just happy that the committee continues to take it on with the help of the Finance Committee. And I urge my colleagues to support it.
Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the Finance and Claims Committee reviewed this proposal and fully supported moving this on to the Ordinance Committee. Essentially, by increasing the maximum amount of eligibility, we increase the number of seniors moving from the Tier 1 level to, from the Tier 2 level to the Tier 1 level, and also increasing the number that qualify for the Tier 2 level. So the net of it is we're increasing the overall number of eligible seniors that will qualify for some type of tax relief. it's a helping hand. It's not the end-all solution, but any additional amount that we can help the seniors could make the difference in them staying in their homes and staying in Norwalk as contributing members of the community. So we fully support moving this forward. The maximum amount that we're allowed per state guidance, we're utilizing that maximum number. And I also want to mention that the application process starts February 1st, 2020 through May 15th, 2020. So we will get the word out. We will ensure that the senior centers and anywhere we can promote the application process, that seniors are aware, so that they can at least apply, hopefully be eligible, receive a helping hand, and make their lives somewhat better here in Norwalk.
Further discussion? Again, I want to thank the council. Each year we visit this issue with a view towards maximizing the amount that people can get senior tax relief. I don't think it's any secret that I am a firm believer that we need to have tax reform in the state of Connecticut. It's very challenging to have to tax people's homes, tax people's businesses. I say that the property tax is a very regressive tax. It's income and profit blind. If you don't have a job, your property taxes become due. If your company's not making a profit, your property taxes become due. We need to find a better way of taxation, something that's not as regressive, something that people can live in. We see that people, unfortunately, are leaving the state of Connecticut. They're moving into Norwalk, but they're leaving other parts of the state of Connecticut because of taxing. And we have to find a better way to do it. That's one of the challenges I believe that the state has, and as you know, our tax structure is all governed by the state. City of Norwalk doesn't have a choice. The only thing we can do is offer people with disabilities some tax relief, we can offer veterans some tax relief, and we can offer seniors some tax relief. And we do that to the greatest extent allowable by law. But we really have to start looking at, as a state, of how we can be more or less reliant on property taxes. I know that you said February 1st to May. I know the media here will probably advertise that, I would hope, but we'll also put out a press release and hopefully, as we did one time, Mr. Kites, we held a seminar for seniors to come and help them navigate through the process of applying for their tax relief. And that's something that we have to do because sometimes people feel confused. They feel that they don't know how to go through the process, and by that time it can be too late. So we want to encourage a tax relief seminar to help people to navigate through the process and give them the greatest likely opportunity to apply for it. So again, thank you to the council. I think we here in Norwalk get it. We understand that people are being stressed out because of their taxes, and we want to make sure that we can help them in any way possible. So again, thank you so much, and we will put out a press conference, and we'll put out a seminar for people who can apply for property tax relief. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the council. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? We're adjourned.